Now the federal government is actively fighting a powerful militia in Amhara, known as Fano. When we visited, much of the recent fighting between the federal government and Fano had taken place outside the town of Lalibela in Ethiopia's highlands. A site of pilgrimage, Lalibela is famous for its huge ancient churches carved into red volcanic rock. Most of the residents, who number 20,000, depend on tourism, but the tens of thousands of international tourists who used to visit every year are mostly gone. Our first day in Amhara, as we were driving north of Lalibela, we happened upon a Fano checkpoint. The militia members who pulled us over greeted us warmly after they recognized our driver, who was from the local community. When we asked to talk with them, they invited us to a bar across the road. Uniformed fighters poured into the outdoor seating space. They were communicating through walkie-talkies because the federal government had cut cell service. At one point, some of them flagged down 2 approaching passenger buses. Several people got off and started excitedly taking selfies with the militants, asking them to hold up their guns and the Amhara state flag, evidence of the immense support for Fano in the area. After the flurry of picture-taking, the passengers got back on the buses. As they did, the fighters asked them for donations. Most of the Fano fighters at the bar were young. This was their first experience of war. 2 women, named Fenta and Lasta, joined me behind the bar in a small room with a single chair and a mattress on the ground, where we sat and talked. They were shy but certain, and they behaved like sisters. Lasta, who wore 3 delicate earrings in one ear, was 18, and Fenta, with curly hair cropped short, thought she was 19, but wasn't sure of her age. Fenta said being a guerrilla fighter was the first time she had felt free in a long time. "I was forced into marriage with someone I don't like," she told me. Her uncle had arranged the ceremony several years earlier, and Fenta, whose mother was dead, had agreed to it in order to be able to take care of her younger sisters. After 3 years, Fenta left her husband, with whom she shared some cattle and farm produce. "I sold it all and gave the money to my aunt, who was looking after my younger sisters," she said. "Then I immediately joined Fano." She believed that the government was working to pull apart and weaken Amhara. She continued, "They made us fight with Tigray. They are like us, young people like us." Lasta had finished her final year of high school, but decided against taking the leaving exam. "My school results were good," she said, but she was pessimistic about her chances of success. "There is no peace in the country," she explained. The women believed their Amharan identity and their religion. They were Orthodox Christians who carried with them into battle pages from the Book of David and small lockets, were under threat. Both of them held their guns as they talked. "I am not trying to brag, but mostly the enemy soldiers are the ones dying a lot," Lasta said, referring to the federal government's troops. "They don't fight, and they run away. They are always nervous and fearful. They are big in numbers, but they are not effective. They just shoot blindly," she said. "Some of the enemy soldiers are Amharas. They don't want to fight us." During one battle, Fenta was shot in the stomach, she said, and rolled down a hill. "I didn't even feel the wound because I was furious." The leader of their division, Wagano Adarao, estimated that more than 1,000 government soldiers had surrendered to Fano. Adarao, who was in his 50s, had been a police officer and then business owner working in transport and construction before he joined Fano. Soft-spoken with salt and pepper hair, he was married and had 2 children in the fight. Another lived in England. "Ever since the current government took power, there have been killings and massacres targeting the ethnic Amhara," he said, referring to the war against the TPLF, among other conflicts. "And now its army is invading our province. The army retaliates in places where we don't have control." He went on to tell me that mothers are being raped, daughters are being raped. Children were a victim of mortar and heavy artillery attacks. "I've never seen this kind of cruelty in my life." Fano didn't have a secession agenda, he said, but he went on, "When power is taken by others outside Amhara, which is the pillar of Ethiopia, they tend to promote the supremacy of their ethnic group at the expense of other ethnic groups. Fano had to fight for survival. Adarau estimated that there were 15,000 to 20,000 Fano militants in the area. "One thing I can tell you is that all the people of Amhara are Fanos," he said. "The people of Amhara are 100% with us." Outside experts note that the government still has supporters in the state. He added that the children are warriors, and they are skillful fighters, and they are fully dedicated. A 21-year-old fighter named Mattress, whose gun nearly dwarfed her, said her family supported her decision to join the militia. Adarau sent a comrade to fetch one of their prisoners, a baby-faced government soldier named Letta. "I surrendered myself voluntarily," Letta, who was 22 and from the state of Oromia, told me. "I heard they don't kill you if you surrender." Several Fano militants watched him carefully, with smiles on their faces. Letta said he was tired and fed up of serving in the military after a year and a half, going without enough food and suffering in the intense heat. He had sent money back to his family in Oromia and eventually hoped to make his way to Addis Ababa to find work. I asked him where he got the money. "I sold my gun," he said. The Fano militants laughed. In July, the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights noted that more than 2,000 civilians had already died in Amhara this year amid the fighting between Fano and the Ethiopian military. The conflict extends to other countries too. Experts have found mounting evidence that the United Arab Emirates has been providing military support to Abiy, as well as providing arms to the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group in Sudan, where civil wars turned the country into a battlefield. The UAE denies this. Days after leaving Amhara, I received a message on WhatsApp from an unknown British number. It took a while before I realized I was messaging with Waganau Adarau's son, Barakat, who lives in England. He had immigrated as a refugee and now attends school there. He told me that he helped raise money with donations from people in the Amhara diaspora in Britain to send to his father, the Amhara community, and Fano militants every few months. Barakat had watched his father go from working in local law enforcement to joining the war in Tigray to now helping lead the Amhara rebellion. "It's the one thing that is haunting me every day," he said. "He's been fighting his whole life.